I'm fine, sir. So,
Fantastic.
firstly, sir, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sir. It really means a lot. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show, sir. I had been listening to your podcast for a couple of days and it was very good. And I feel like I have the pleasure to have actually been speaking with you. Uh, so it's a pleasure to have you on the show, sir. And good morning, sir. I hope it's 8 o'clock there in America.
Yes, correct.
So morning, sir. And
Thank
how
you.
was? Yes, sir. So, so let me just ask you by asking a simple question, sir. So how are you, sir? And how was your morning today?
Wonderful. Yes. Yes. I'm an early riser. So been up for a couple of hours now doing some work. And so far the day is wonderful.
So, sir, so you have been a best-selling author, and written so many books. You have produced podcasts and as a host of American Real, and more than 200 episodes it has been. So you have interviewed so many personalities on your show. How it feels like to be interactive with such personalities? Does it sometimes you feel that uh, there is much more can be done? You could have asked more questions, or sometimes it happens like we want to ask some questions and it couldn't be generated in that way. So, sir, how you cope up with all those anxiety? Sometimes it happens when it comes to podcasting, sir. So, my question to you is, sir, how you deal with it?
Well, look, yes, every personality is different. What I try to do is bring out the best in everyone that I meet with. Maybe try to get to a place that they haven't talked about before. So, and a lot of that comes with the preparation and the research to make sure that listening to podcasts that they've been on, reading books or articles that they've written, looking at their social media posts, and trying to really understand who they are before I get on, a podcast with them, so I could start to ask thoughtful and deep questions where the conversation will go hopefully to a place that is, fresh and new, and content that they may not have discussed before. If they did, maybe in a different way.
Yes, sir. And sir, I was watching your video once, and you told like your schedule for every single day is so fixed, and you have so much things to do. So I wanted to ask you how you managed to do all those things all together. In writing a book, you are also coaching as well. You're coaching people to write and edit the books and publish their books as well. You are working 24/7, I guess, most of the time. So, sir, how you find the balance between your personal life and your professional life? Because it can be sometimes it can be challenging. So, how you find your space wherein you can be satisfied in both the roles as a professional and in as a personal life, sir?
Right. Yeah. So look, we all have 24 hours in the day. We all have the same time to work with. It's how you optimize that time. So, being and I learned this from one of my interviewees, David Meltzer. He talks about being a student of your calendar, really looking at your calendar and making sure that you're optimizing each hour, each minute, and living by that, because as we all know, time passes by very quickly. So if you don't have items written in your calendar, even if you don't have a meeting or anything in particular, it's putting those items in so you could focus on those items at that time. So that's the first thing, is really optimizing the calendar. The second thing is having good people, being able to hire people that are good at what they do. So whether it's, I have someone who helps me with my social media, and I have people that do book editing. I have people that do the publishing. I have people that do the, the video editing and things like that. So making sure that you surround yourself with people that you're compatible with, and to be able to allow them to work on things that they're good at, to allow me to do the things that I'm good at.
Yes, sir. So, sir, it has been like this, you have interviewed so many people. So, sir, is there something which you learn from every single person? Because in podcasting, everyone has I believe that everyone has a story to tell, and everyone is a hero in their own stories, in their own lives. So, sir, how you take their some experiences and how you have implemented in your life, sir? Because it can be so much to be learned from every single person which we meet. So how you implement those things in your life?
Sure. Yeah. So to answer the first question, yeah, absolutely. I try to take away, several things from each guest on the podcast, and everyone has something to offer. But the key, I believe, is to be a good listener. So if you're in the podcast and, you're thinking about the next question, then you're not really going to be listening to what the guest is talking about. So I didn't do that from day one. I had to learn that skill to become a good listener, to be able to take something away. Otherwise, you're just, your mind is elsewhere and you're not staying aware and present and focused on the guest. So absolutely. And then, yes, it's, I think with podcast content, the way I look at it is that you're really capturing a moment in time of a conversation. And that conversation may be relevant 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So being able to go back into that archive and to, review that content and release that content. So not just put the content out once, but multiple times, because what you're going to do is there'll be new people that see that didn't see it the first time. And even if they did see it, it'll be a refresher for what they may have heard in the past. And it's a refresher for me. So being able to go back to those clips and, release those clips, rewatch those clips, or listen to those clips, so that I can benefit, and then the audience can also benefit from, the brilliant content that the guest provided.
Sure, sir. But it's sometimes like, as you said, you have to go in each and every content which you have already worked on. Sometimes it takes hours to actually go through every single content. Sometimes it feels like, why am I doing so much thing just to know more about that person? But sir, thank you so much. It's a really uh, and sir, I also wanted to ask, like, as you have mentioned in few of your interviews that how your journey has been started. You had been playing, I believe, you have been playing baseball in your school days. Am I right, sir?
Correct. Yes.
So after that, you had been writing poetries and winning few competitions. But then, sir, after poetry, how it has been a brilliant journey from writing small poems to actually publishing a book. Because writing a book, sir, it takes so much time, it takes so much passion, it takes so much courage to write your content. And the thing with writing books is sometimes you are vulnerable in your own state because people have opinions about you when you release your book, sir. So how you tackle with all those opinions of people, because there are so many people who are reading your content and they people have their own perspective. So sir, how you deal with all those and you just calm yourself down and work on your own content?
Yeah. Look, I think the the thing is, you have to be comfortable in your own skin, right? So you have to be comfortable who you are as a person, your values, your beliefs, your convictions, because everyone's not going to agree with you. So when you put the content out, I do it with the intent that hopefully I'm going to help some people with this content. Hopefully it'll make a difference in someone's life that day. Hopefully the whatever I wrote that day will resonate with people, to make an impact, right? But you can't please everyone. It's impossible to do that. So to be honest with you, I don't really give it much thought at all. Once in a while, there'll be, negative comments, and I respond, and I'll just try to, provide my perspective on what they had to say. But for the most part, I don't give it too much thought because I really, like many people, have to focus on the positive as well as, producing more content. So now to go back to your, the first point about the writing, yes, writing can be challenging. It can be time consuming. But at the same time, if you have a passion for something, it's like anything, you make the time, right? And don't overcomplicate it. So that's what I try to do with my books. And when I help others write their books, is really to try to break it down into, little pieces. So if you have a 150-page book, look at it as an outline, and then your chapters, and then your subtitles within that chapter, all the topics that you're going to cover, and take it one at a time. And if you do that, just like anything, if you go to the fitness center to work out, you don't start lifting, 200 pounds the first day. You gradually, every day you do a little bit. So it's the same thing. Writing is just making the time for it and sticking to it, having that consistency to see it through.
So, sir, on that note, I want to ask uh, how you manage to keep writing because you're working so much. Where because everyone has their own space to write. Some people write, they prefer to write in night time. Some people prefer to write when they're working. So, what is your routine, sir, in writing?
Yeah, my routine is to get up early. So I get up early every day before, the emails and the phone calls and the text messages are coming in. And I really try to give myself the time between, say, 4:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. to get my writing done. And that way it's done for the day. And I really believe that when you come out of your sleep, we have fresh ideas. Our creative unconscious works with us, right? So that you may wake up in the middle of the night with an idea. And it may even be during the middle of the day. So always be aware that these ideas are working with you as you're writing your book or whatever you may be writing, and to take notes, because as we all know, you may have a thought and then a minute later you could forget the thought if you don't write it down. So I think it's really important to, trust yourself to take notes and make sure that you're really working with your subconscious or your creative unconscious.
Yes, sir. I usually like I also write, sir. So it's like I always have one small book. So whenever I because these things come naturally into your head because when you're doing something and when you're watching something, you just strike your mind and you just want to write that idea down. So it's my
Yes.
routine. I write a few points before beginning to what actually writing. So, sir, as you mentioned, you are an early bird. Like in morning, you wake up. So, sir, do you believe, do you follow spirituality in your life? Spirituality.
I do, absolutely. Sure. So, everyone's definition is different. I think, it's a very personal thing, spirituality, but for sure, um, I do some meditation. I practice gratitude. I practice an abundance mindset. And again, it's really just sticking with those things, and not only for yourself, but for others. So as you're doing it for yourself and, and thinking about and being grateful for things, also being grateful for others. So if you know someone who just earned a new job promotion, or if someone just had a new child, or someone just got married, celebrate that in a spiritual way with them, to send positive energy out to the world, because I think that energy is very real, even though we can't physically see it or touch it.
Yes.
It is definitely there. And I think we all know, to some extent, we hear about, I had that sixth sense. That sixth sense is very, very real. And, look, either you believe it or you don't, or you may half believe it. But I know this: once you do go all in on trusting the process of that positive energy, it can make a huge impact on your life, even though it may not seem so all the time, right? So, and that's the way life is. There'll be days where it's not as easy as it was the day before. Why did this have to happen to me? So again, it's trying to reset yourself to keep that positive mindset and know that in the end, if you're working toward your goals and you're being a decent person and you're spreading, as much kindness in the world, that it will be reciprocated in ways that you can't measure and you shouldn't want to measure.
Exactly, sir. Uh, so as you mentioned, trusting the process, because this is something which I also believe in. It's really important. Even if we are doing something, even if we are writing a book, trusting the process. I think it's very important. So, sir, how you implement trusting of anything in whatever you are doing? How you keep on building that trust that whatever I'm doing is correct and it's according to me what I really want. How that
Yeah.
trust comes, sir? How you keep on going?
Well, look, I think it's a combination of a lot of things that, you have to have the self-awareness, you have to have the self-confidence, and you have to know that you're not always going to be right. So for me, it's about surrounding myself with others, good people, mentors that I could turn to in those moments of doubt, in those moments where I might need, a little bit of help or a little bit of a boost to get me through a challenge that I may be, having. So none of us are perfect, but at the same time, we could try every single day, I believe, to stay consistent in what you do, because when you do that, there's less and less of the self-doubt that'll creep in when you stay consistent. Trust yourself, trust your gut, trust your instincts, all those things those buzzwords that we hear and think about, that it's true, right? If every single one of us has our own unique way to communicate, whether it's written or verbal or whatever it may be. So, finding that way that you do it yourself and then trusting it, because you don't want to try to communicate like someone else. That's their way. You may want to emulate it. You may want to say, okay, I like this author. I would like to, write like this author, or I like that speaker. I like how they present. I want to do something similar. But at the same time, you have to develop your own unique style, because people could see through that. People understand authenticity. And when you're transparent with yourself and when you're transparent with others, I believe that shines through, very, very clear.
So, yes, so it's like absolutely, I believe it so. And it has been a pleasure. I has already told you that. So, sir, like you wake up early in the morning. How is your routine like? Let's take an example of a Monday, because Monday is something people are working much. So, sir, how is your Mondays is like? I want to know like how Roger sir's Monday routine is.
Well, to be honest with you, Monday is no different than Friday or Wednesday. Literally, like every day, I try. Now, look, there's exceptions, of course, but for the most part, my days are pretty consistent on, the time I go to bed, the time I wake up, the things I do throughout the day. Obviously the working hours are your typical working hours. So for the most part, that's what you're doing in that 8-hour, 9-hour period. But outside of that, it's pretty consistent. And yeah, so my days consist of, I do intermittent fasting. So I don't have a meal until 12 or 1 o'clock p.m. I'll have coffee, which I have now, in the morning, and then have a nice lunch and dinner. But so that's one routine that I've developed over the last 5 to 7 years. And there's phone calls, there's meetings, there's creative time. So for the most part, the early days and the end of my days are very consistent. And then what happens in the middle, you need to be flexible. You need to be able to, there might be travel one day, or, it really depends on that day. But to be honest with you, a Monday for me is no different than any other day. Just like a Saturday. Today's Saturday, doing this wonderful podcast with you. And that's why I picked 8:00, because, early I'm trying to get some other things done. This is a really good time for me to be able to do the podcast. So I'm grateful that it worked out for both of us.
Exactly, sir. So, sir, as you mentioned, intermittent fasting you do, and I think it's really good because I have also applied intermittent fasting, and it balances all the nutrition sometimes, because we eat like, if I say to myself, like, I eat like, so let's don't go there, but still intermittent fasting is something which is really good, and it refreshes the whole body. So exactly, that's an amazing thing, sir. So, sir, I have a few questions, but I would like to ask those in form of a game. So
Sure.
it's called Would You Rather. I think you have
Would
heard
you
of it.
rather?
Yes, sir. So I have few questions. Uh, so the first question, sir, would you rather choose to write and publish a book, or host an American Real podcast? So you have to choose one, sir, for your rest of your life. So you have to, like,
Yeah, I would say write and publish.
write and publish.
Absolutely. Yes.
The second, sir, is okay. So in between, I also want to ask, sir, you have shifted from writing non-fiction books to a fictional book as well, because in one of your interviews you have spoke about your fictional book. But sir, how you deal with that balance between, because writing non-fiction is really different from writing a fictional. So sir, how you manage to do
Yes.
that balance between writing fictional to non-fiction,
Right.
vice versa?
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. And again, I try not to overcomplicate anything. So if I get an idea and I say, I want to write a nonfiction book, then I'll attempt to do that in the best possible way. Which, when you're right, from a creative standpoint, the challenge of writing fiction, it's more challenging to write fiction. But, about 10 years ago, I had the idea I wanted to write a fiction book. I never wrote a fiction book. It is a lot harder. So it's literally been 10 years that I've been working on my book. So, but at the same time, I'm not, I want to make sure it's done right. And, I'm not doing that for a living, right? I'm doing it because it's something I want to do. But I think the point is, and hopefully, this is important for your listeners, because it's something I learned, that don't take it too serious, right? So if you want to write a book of fiction, just do it. No one has to authorize it. If you want to write a nonfiction book, just do it. You know what I mean? So I think we get caught up sometimes that, oh, I don't have the credentials or the background or the education. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're here on earth for a very short time, right? Even if we live to
Exactly.
in
Yes,
our
sir.
90s, right? So what I do is I think about, okay, what more can I do to satisfy my own needs and desires, at the same time trying to spread some goodness to the world. So I get the idea, and then I've learned over time you have to take action, because you could think about it and think about it and think about it, and it'll never get done. So that's why I'm also really passionate about helping other people write their books, because I know how challenging it can be. I know how hard it was for me in the beginning. And when you have someone to work with, to be able to bounce ideas off of and hold yourself accountable to that person, then the process is, much better from a standpoint that you have a greater chance of getting it done. So I have my own coach, my own writing coaches. I have my own editors, because I'm not good at everything, right? But I know that I want to write different types of books. So no one's going to stop me from doing that. It's something that I'm passionate about, and that I want to get done. So I would encourage people, if they are thinking about writing or anything, whatever you want to do, you hear this, it sounds cliche, but we can do anything we put our minds to. We really can, but you have to believe it. You can't just say it and
Exactly.
move
Yes,
on.
sir.
You have to really, really believe it and dedicate the time and sacrifice and make you have to make the sacrifices in order for things like books to get written. And even if you're busy, I work with a lot of busy executives who say, I want to write a book, but I don't have the time. And then I have a conversation with them and I say, what time do you get up? And they say, well, usually about 6 or 7 a.m. And I'll say, well, how about getting up an hour earlier and going to bed a little bit earlier? So now maybe you could get up at 5 a.m. and you'll have 1 hour every day to dedicate to writing until the project's done. It's not for the rest of your life. So it may take you 3 months to write your book, but think about it. We're here in mid-April or toward the end of April here, May, June, July. At the end of July, you can have a book written. How wonderful is that? And so it's just really, I think, having that balance and not making it too complicated, just going after your goals and really what you want to accomplish.
Absolutely. Exactly, sir. Like, this is the question everyone says that they also want to write a book but they don't find the time, or they don't know how to write. This is something which they should learn from you as well. As you said, like, they have to trust their instincts, and they just start writing before thinking so much, because that is something which also I was also a little bit struggle with, because we condition our brains in such a way it keeps on stopping us from doing the things which you really want to do. And that is the thing we also should break and try something new, sir. So
Yes,
that's amazing.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So, sir, back to the question of the game. So, would you rather choose to write a fictional book or a non-fiction book?
Hmm. It's tough, because honestly, the nonfiction I could write fairly quickly, right? So I could put more nonfiction books out. Fiction takes a lot longer because there's research and there's just so much you have to do with fiction. But I enjoy writing fiction more. I enjoy writing fiction more. So if I had to choose for the rest of my life, I would say fiction, even though it would take longer to get those books out.
Oh, that's amazing, sir. I didn't really expected that. Like, seriously, I
It's
thought you
fun.
would. Absolutely,
You're
I thought
creating
you.
a world, right? When you're writing fiction, you're creating something that doesn't exist. You could choose the characters, you could choose how they react, you choose the outcomes, you choose every scene and every sentence. So to have that control, right, of that, it's very empowering, but it's also, it's how you tell that story, and you could really entertain people by doing that. So it's there's just something really special about writing fiction. It's very, very challenging. It's the hardest thing I've ever tried to do, and I'm still not done, right? So my close friends and family laugh at me because it's been 10 years. So they'll when's the book going to get done? When's the book going to get done? They keep asking. But so I've learned something else. Don't tell too many people that you're writing a book until it's actually
Exactly.
done, because then you have that added pressure of getting it done.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. The same thing I was having this conversation with one of my friends. He asked me, like, why you enjoy writing? Because, sir, I also write and publish book. Mostly fictional. I just told, because you have a one paper and all your emotions, all your imagination can be there written into a real world onto the paper. This is something which is really amazing. As you said, sir, like, all your imagination, everything, whatever you want to create a world in, it can be on paper, it can be real, because that is the beauty of writing. Exactly, sir. As you mentioned, like, if you read it, you will actually start to imagine it, and create your own story. That is really amazing, sir. So that's, I mean, moving on to the next question. So would you rather stuck on a very long flight or in a train without a book? So what would you choose? Like with book or without book when you're traveling somewhere?
Um, I would say with a book.
With a book. Amazing. So the last question, sir. Would you rather read only one book in entire year or remember every word and remember everything from that one book, or read 100 books and don't really remember all those 100 books in an entire year? So what would you choose, sir?
I would choose 100 books, learn a little bit from each one.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't expect it that also. I thought like you could have chosen one book, but that's amazing. Um, so the question I really want to ask is how you keep motivated about yourself in whatever you are doing, sir. And are you still curious about trying new things? Because um you are doing so much currently, writing a book, you are coaching so many students to write a book, you are the host of American Real and have interviewed so many personalities around the world, sir. Is there something which you also feel that you want to try something more, something different, something curious? Are you still about that thing that all, yes, I want to try that. Yes, I want to try that. So how you keep
Yeah,
that curiosity?
absolutely. You know, one of the things I think about is, you know, what other things can I generate to help others, right? So maybe it's a new online course or whatever it may be. So, you know, I'm fortunate to have a team of folks around me that support me. And those are some of the things we talk about is how can we best, you know, support our clients, of course, and that comes first. But then we look about, you know, we think about what's new, what else can we do to, and I think for me at the stage of my life, what in order to do something new, I have to look internally to think about what I'm naturally good at. So I'm not going to start teaching engineering because I don't know anything about engineering, right? So there's certain things that we just can't do depending on our skill set. So I would say that for me, it's thinking about my skill set, where I could lend, you know, some helpful information or provide suggestions to others that will benefit their life, and then building something around that. So whether it is a book, whether it's writing a social media post. So all these things are new, you know, that we're constantly doing on a daily basis. But to take on a bigger project, that takes a lot more thought. And but certainly always thinking about what's next and what can make the most impact for others.
Absolutely. Sure, sir. I have read your posts, sir, on LinkedIn as well. All those motivational quotes, it's really good, sir. Like because I had few saved in my gallery also. So when I feel some, like I want some motivation, I go and read those quotes, and it really feels good, sir. So thank you so much for that too.
Thank you. No, thank you. And just so you know, what I'll do is I try to do them early in the morning, and you know, I'll take a note, you know, and just start working with it to come up with something that I feel that day that might help others. So, you know, a lot of people pre-plan their posts, which is fine. I tried doing that, but for me, it's best to wake up that day and say, okay, what am I feeling today, and what do I want to write about today that could potentially help others? And at the same time, a little trick that I do that you may want to, or your listeners may want to, is I tap into my own content. So I may just open one of my books and say, oh, today I'm going to write about forgiveness, and maybe take a little bit of an excerpt from the book or something new and put that out there. So, it could be anything. You could look at things in your room, or the different books, come up with a thought, make it your own, and certainly put that intention out to the world through a post, because as you just said, if it's helping you, that's wonderful. That makes, that's the reason I do it, is to hopefully send that energy to others so you could feel it, and maybe it'll make a difference in your day.
It's amazing, sir. Like, absolutely, like whatever you are doing it for so many people. They are learning from it, they are enjoying the content, they are implementing their quotes in lives too, and that is something which is really good. Uh,
And don't
so
forget, you're also doing it for yourself, right? So
exactly,
my posts are not only for others, they're for myself. They're gentle reminders that, okay, this is how I aim to live, and I may not be perfect at it, but this is how I'm feeling. So if I put out a quote, it's not to try to be better than someone else, or say this is what you need to do. It's really my own doing. This is for me, and hopefully, and that's why I'll ask, do you agree with me? Because
yeah,
maybe I ask
absolutely,
that a
sir.
lot. A lot of people may not agree, and that's okay.
Sure, sir. Yeah, I like I thought about it. Like in every post, you end the caption by writing, "Do you agree with me?" That is something which I also stumbled upon. Like I got, sir. So, sir, how was your interview with Brian Rose? Because in one of the interviews, you told like you learned so much from Sir Brian Rose also, and your podcasting journey has also started from one of the courses which uh, their company also provided. So, sir, how was your experience with Brian Rose, and how it has been all started with podcasting, sir?
Yeah, no, it was just an amazing journey. I had been listening and watching Brian Rose for a couple of years before I took his program. So I felt like I already knew him, right? Because I was listening to him, and I knew, how he talked, and I felt when I took the course that, like I said, that I already had a relationship. So it was a pretty intense 8-week program. He was teaching people how to become, a top podcaster. And like anything, you had to put in the work. So I took it very serious. We met once a week on Sundays, every Sunday for 8 weeks. And then at the end, he made an announcement, and it was a surprise announcement. And he said, every year I choose one person to interview me in London. And he said, this year I choose Roger Brooks. And I was elated. I could not believe it. There was about 60 people in the program. So for him to choose me, I was very honored. And I had a chance to go to London to interview him. It ended up being the longest interview that he ever did. It was over 4 hours in time, and it felt maybe like about 2 hours. I had no idea. We were chatting for 4 hours. But what I really liked about it is he let me just ask him all the questions that I had about his journey, and he was able to express them. So yes, it was definitely up there, as one of the top moments, definitely from my podcasting career, but even in general, one of the top moments in my life, to be able to go over there and to be able to have the honor to interview him.
Absolutely. Uh, I think so. We had uh, like it has been 45 minutes now. So last question, sir. Your signature question, which I also want to ask you. So, like, what is the legacy which you want to leave behind? Because uh, it because we are not here for like eternity in this world. We will leave sometime. So, sir, what is your legacy which you want to leave behind when you leave? That is your signature question.
Yeah,
I
right.
wanted to ask
You're
you that.
reversing it.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
no, I appreciate it. So look, this is how I feel about that. And this is what came to mind right away. My legacy is that I try to make every interaction with every single person, maybe it'll be the last, right? So to leave the best feeling, right? Not even an impression, just to be your best self at every single interaction. So that's the way people will remember you. You know, if you're grumpy, or if you're in a bad mood, or if you're not nice to someone, that's how they're going to remember you, right? So it's a lot of work, I feel, to always be your best. It's easy not to be your best. It's lazy not to be your best. That's how I feel about it. So when I see people walking around that, and you never know what someone's going through, but if day in, day out, if they're not happy people, I feel bad for them, because why would you want to live your life like that? I try to do the reverse and make every single interaction the best. So at the end of the day, one day it will be our last day, and people will say, wow, hopefully I made an impact on their life, whether it was just through conversation or through the books that I write or the social media posts or whatever it may be, that they knew that my intentions were good, and that especially for my family, trying to lead by example for my children, and always to be, on top for my spouse. It's really important to treat every single interaction, even if inside you're not feeling it that day. Boost yourself up, sweat it out, and just say, look, I need to turn it on, because we're always on. You just never know who you're going to meet, what doors will be opened, and conversely, what doors may close because you're not being your best self.
Absolutely, sir. Like, it has been an honor to have you on the show, sir. It means a lot. And personally, in this podcast, I have also learned a lot from you, sir. Like, honestly, there are certain things which I was also there. Of course, there are questions wherein people I wanted to include because to have a broader audience in the mind. But a few questions were so good that I also felt that I should implement those things in my life too. I'm still improving,
Thank you.
sir. So, yeah, thank you so much for sir being on the show and accepting the invitation to come on the podcast. And thanks for Kate also, because she has been writing and all those communication, it has been happening. It was really amazing, and it is really amazing having this conversation with you, sir. And thank you so much. Hope you to again invite you on the show also. And so, yeah, it's an amazing experience, sir.
It's my pleasure. Happy to come back anytime. Thank you so much. And thanks to your audience.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.